It's a Locked On crossover. Locked On Braves, Locked On Angels, and on today's show, we discuss who has the advantage in the weekend series. Is it the Braves? Is it the Angels? I think it's pretty obvious. How Wash and EY impacted the Braves and now are impacting the Angels, and what can we expect moving forward for the Braves and the Angels? It's time to get locked on with Jake, Mike, and John, and this is a Locked On crossover with the Braves and the Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is, and yes, we are. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels and Locked On Braves. And if you'd like to get back to us for all this incredible content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100.
Thank you for being here for this special edition of Locked On Angels and Locked On Braves. It's a crossover edition where the three of us are hanging out talking about this upcoming Angels and Braves series. If you don't know us, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And we're here with our friend. So for our everydayers, our Angels everydayers, that's Jake Mastriani of Locked On Braves. What's up, Jake?
Hey, what's up? Thanks. I'm glad to be on here. I love the Super Halo Bros. You guys do one of the best ones out there. I love listening to you guys. So happy to be on the show talking little Angels and Braves.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, we enjoy your show so much as well. Now, if you don't know, we're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball, talking Braves baseball, 5 days a week, every single weekday. On today's show, we're going to be previewing this series between the Angels and the Braves. Very rarely do the Braves come to town for us, so it's kind of an exciting series. The only thing I'm scared of is Matt Olson and his ability to crush the ball to right field, which he did so many times as an Oakland A, and will probably do many, many times this weekend. But we've got a good little rundown for today's show, kind of getting into each team. Mike, why don't you get us started here?
Yeah, Jake, why don't you start us and give us Angel fans all the things that we need to know about the Braves right now?
Well, one thing you need to know about the Braves is it's been a rough season for them. You look at the record and maybe it doesn't quite look like that, but just injury-wise, I mean, you lose Spencer Strider the first month of the season. You lose Ron Acuna Jr. the second month of the season. You guys obviously know all about losing superstar talent. It is not fun at all, and they've just had injury after injury this season, and it just feels like they've been hanging on to a thread. They got off to a great start first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, but they've been a 500 to even a little bit below 500 team ever since then. So it's been a bit of a frustrating season, but still a lot of talent there. So expectations are still set for this Braves team, but they've really had to battle this year. They've had some regression, including Matt Olson, who you just mentioned. So Braves fans are probably going to be a little surprised to hear you talk so glowingly about Matt Olson, because it's been a bit of a rough season for him after the monster season he had last year. So hopefully that is the case and that he goes to Anaheim there and is able to crank out some home runs. And he has been better as of late, and the offense has been better as of late. But we get Michael Harris back the other day, and what happens in the same game that Michael Harris returns after being out for 2 months with a hamstring injury? Jorge Soler goes down with a hamstring injury. So it's been one of those frustrating years for Braves fans. And again, I know as Angels fans, you feel it too.
Absolutely. Well, and if anybody's going to find a way, I'll say it this way. If you need to get right, then the Angels are the perfect get right team. And I know you guys are trying to hang in there on that wild card spot and keep one of those spots. And I know the Mets have been sniffing around. I know the Diamondbacks and the Padres are, they're closing in on the Dodgers. So that's a tight race there as well. But if you need to get right against the Angels, this is the weekend to do it. And I think that's what's going to happen here with the Braves.
Well, we and Mike were talking beforehand. The one thing the Braves have struggled with this year is beating teams that they should. That's been a real issue. They played pretty well against teams above 500. I want to say they have the best record in the National League against teams above 500. It's the teams they should be beating that they haven't this year. And that's, again, what's also just been so frustrating about this season for the Braves.
Interesting thought, because, Johnny, I know we talked on Locked On Angels. how often the Angels do really well against those good teams and terrible against the bad teams. And
Right.
so give the Braves fans, John, a glimpse into the misery. I'm sorry, the fandom of being an Angel fan around here. Where the Angels are, where are they at right now?
Well, if you're a Braves fan and you're communicating or interacting with any Angel fan online, they should have let you know that this year was not going to be a winning season. And I think that should be clear to most baseball fans. However, the Angels would paint a different picture. The team itself and the front office would paint a very different picture coming into this year. For us, Mike, you and I included in Angel fandom, it was a year of growth. It was a year to see what these guys have. It was a year to see what a full season of Zach Neto looks like, or a full season of Logan O'Hoppe. Heck, even Joe Adell, who hasn't quite had a full season's worth of at-bats and plate appearances before 2024. So give him a full season as well. And there was some hope that perhaps, and Mike and I kind of aimed at, hey, if it's 500 for this team in 2024, then that's a winning season. That's a good season for this young team on the come up. However, they're not going to reach 500. And once again, we've seen extended absences from Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout. Oh, and I forgot to mention their two-way superstar player, Shohei Ohtani, went to the crosstown rivals, not division rivals, but crosstown rival Dodgers. And so that was a big loss as well. So our curiosity at the beginning of the season was, how are these young guys going to step up and fill that void? And to some extent, I think they've stepped up pretty well. And what keeps Angel fans tuning in night after night, week after week, is seeing the growth of these young players and seeing their growth under somebody like manager Ron Washington, who Braves fans know all too well. And he has been a gift. And if any Angel fan tells you otherwise, don't listen to them, because we are so grateful that the Braves allowed Ron Washington to take this managerial job in Anaheim for sure.
Yeah, and Ron Washington is, obviously a big part of this Braves team and has been for a long time. And Braves fans didn't want to let him go. I mean, there have been players that I think Braves fans were more acceptable of leaving than Ron Washington, because a lot of people believe he meant that much to this team, and not necessarily so much for what he does on the field. And he's obviously a great defensive coach, but it's just his personality in the clubhouse, keeping everything loose, and everything that he's brought to this team. And Eric Young is too. I mean, he was that same type of guy. They were just, again, they were bigger than coaches. It was more just what they did interactionally with the team and in the clubhouse that was so important and vital to the chemistry in that Braves team. And it's honestly led a lot of Braves fans this year to point to that, to being the biggest reason why this Braves team has not met expectations. I don't know that I necessarily completely buy that losing your first and third base coaches has led to success on the field not being there. But I do think that is part of it, because those two guys had been there for a while and they were such key members. So again, if I could take over here for a second and ask you a question.
Sure.
What are your feelings on both Ron Washington and Eric Young? Obviously, the record is not where you want it to. I don't think should necessarily be, discount those two guys. But, what are your feelings on them with this Angels team, and how do you feel the direction they're going?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Why don't you take this one?
Well, I love Wash. I think that he has brought what this team has needed for a really long time. We haven't had a strong manager who has invested in the players since Mike Scioscia was there. And with Brad Ausmus and Phil Nevin and Joe Madden, all of those guys brought in, and it felt like a half-built airplane, a half-built strategy. They didn't feel like they really knew what the plan was going to be. That's kind of how the Angels have operated for a long time. But the manager has brought in kind of like this, half-built puzzle, and hey, we'll figure it out. When Wash got here, immediately you knew that this team was going to be better fundamentally. You knew this team was going to be better emotionally. Their IQ was going to grow. And I think you see that in players like our shortstop, Zach Neto, who has become, I think, the superstar of this team because he's played and he has been a great leader for us. He moved to the second spot in the lineup and will be there this weekend. And he requested that. He said, I want to be there the next time that there's an opening for that. And Wash loved that because that's the spirit that Wash brings, and he's really instilled that in Zach Neto. He was off on Thursday in the game, and Wash texts all the players, the lineup, and he got a long text message back from Zach Neto with all of the reasons why he should have played in that game. And it was one of those things as Angel fans that we just haven't seen in a long time. We haven't seen players rise to the occasion outside of a Mike Trout or a Shohei Ohtani. And we haven't seen players rise to the standard that the manager is bringing, because the managers just didn't bring a standard. And I think that's what has allowed Angel fans to support this team and really fall in love with Ron Washington. Sure, we'd love to see a better win-loss record, but ultimately we see a better fundamental baseball team. We see a team that is adjusting and developing, and they're thinking out on the field, and they're thinking in the right direction. And I think that that's what Wash has really brought to the Halos.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. You look at this Braves team this year where a lot of fans are frustrated because they haven't been doing those little things as well this year. And with all the injuries and some of the regression offensively, last year they just pounded their way to wins. It was easy last season. This year, with all the injuries, they've had to work a little harder, and it's kind of exposed some of those little things that have cost the Braves games in this one. And something that, as you mentioned in here, and you talk about Wash with the Angels, I think that kind of reflects on what Braves fans are missing right now. They're just not doing some of those little things really well that Wash was so great at pointing out and teaching.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels and Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. The Angels and the Braves are playing tonight, 6:38 Pacific time. Is it 8:38 your time out there, Jake? 8:38? Ooh,
yeah,
that's a late night for you guys. We don't envy you here on the West Coast. You can, of course, catch every pitch of the Angels or Braves hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels or Braves. Coming up on this Locked On crossover, who's got the advantage this weekend? Well, we're going to get into all the details about that coming right up.
Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. You can get hydrated and stay hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, Liquid IV. It's perfect after a workout, hot days, especially in Southern California. It's been really hot, and long work hours. Get hydrated, stay hydrated, because a rundown you isn't good for anyone, including you. 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone, and it provides 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients, all in a single stick. Best part, it tastes great, and I can vouch for that. I love the cherry, by the way, one of my favorites. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. No more dehydration for our everydayers with Liquid IV. And you can get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use our promo code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop better hydration today with Liquid IV at liquidiv.com. Use our promo code MLB. Tear, pour, live more. Liquid IV.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, once you're done here with this Locked On Angels and Braves crossover, head on over to Locked On MLB with our pal Sully. He's going to get you ready for playoffs. He's going to be talking about all the stories around the baseball world. It's free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Speaking of your teams every day, the Braves and the Angels get together tonight, 6:38 Pacific time, 8:38 Central time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast or the Braves hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels or Braves.
Boys, last time our teams played, it was a really good team against a team that was trying to be really good. John, remember last year, the Angels just made some trades, and we were all excited. They went all in. They traded a lot of young guys and got a lot of really great starters, and Ronaldo Lopez was a part of that. We got him from the White Sox. Now he is a Brave, and we were excited. So we won the first game, and then the Braves demolished us for the rest of the series, and we fell apart. And so the vibes in SoCal are very different this season against the Braves than they were last season. Jake, I know that the Braves are involved in the race, the wild card race, and trying to get to the top of the East. So what are your expectations for the Braves this weekend against our Halos?
I'm hoping to see a team coming out and continue the fire that they showed against the Giants. This is the team that is on a middle of a 10-game West Coast trip, and those can always be a little bit tricky no matter the competition. It's the final leg of that West Coast trip too. So, the players are looking forward to getting back home, but you hope that they remain focused here because you got a chance to win. And as I talked about earlier, they've struggled to win these games that on paper they should, and frankly, should dominate with the pitching that they have. And it's just, I am expecting them to come out, though, and just be focused and be energized. I know they lost on Thursday. They got shut out by Logan Webb, who was just absolutely filthy, and sometimes that happens. You run into a great pitcher like that, and it happens. But after losing a series in Colorado to the Rockies, they bounced back, won 2 extra inning games against the Giants, who were one of the hottest teams in baseball coming into that series, and then they blew them out on Wednesday before dropping the finale on Thursday. Otherwise, they were looking for the sweep. So hopefully that continues. I just want to see them hopefully be rejuvenated by seeing Ron Washington there, and hopefully that will make them play some cleaner baseball. As I mentioned, it's been a team all year that has really, they've had all the injuries, but also just gotten in their own way a lot. They just haven't done those little things. They've been waiting on that 3-run home run. It's been pretty much a home run or bust type of offense. And without Ronald Acuna Jr., I mentioned they've been without Michael Harris for a while, but he's back now. Ozzie Albies is out right now and won't be back until early mid-September. There's not a lot of speed in this lineup. So it really is home run or bust is what they have right now in this lineup. But those guys do it really well. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want to see them continue to push, to really turn things around. But this season, it's just they take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's just they have not been able to put it together for a consistent stretch for a week or two. And that's where Braves fans are just really frustrated. So we're hoping that Giant series kind of gets them back on track, gets them rolling on a big winning streak.
Johnny, what are your expectations for our Halos this weekend against the Braves?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because of the pitching matchups that are upcoming. And on Friday, tonight, as it stands, it's going to be Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels. And what's interesting about Jose Soriano is that he was a reliever, kind of took the path of what Ronaldo Lopez has done this season, in that he was a pretty hard-throwing reliever. They saw him, and this is a credit to, I think, Ron Washington and his coaching staff, and even Barry Enright, our pitching coach, to identify that, hey, this guy's talent goes beyond the bullpen. And so he has come out as a starter this season, and he's been really good for his first year as a starting pitcher. And so I think what happens in this series is you're going to find some unfamiliar pitching across the weekend when it comes to the Angels starters. And that might be to their advantage. I don't expect that the offense is going to be an issue for the Braves from the Angels side of things, because, man, they have just been so quiet over the last series against the Blue Jays. They were swept. The pitching was also not very good. And that's been a big question mark for this team almost all season. They've sent Reed Detmers down to AAA. Patrick Sandoval is going to be out beyond 2025 with Tommy John surgery. Tyler Anderson has been a real godsend, to be honest with you, because he turned it around from what his season looked like last year. Now, he did struggle against the Blue Jays over this last series, but to have Jose Soriano, Griffin Canning, and a newbie, Jack Kahanowitz, who had been called up from AA, came up, gave him 2 starts that weren't great, was sent back down, came back up, had a great outing his last time out. And so it'll be interesting to see how these Angels starters handle this very experienced Braves offense. And it's funny you mentioned, Jake, there's just like the ability to not do what they need to do against bad teams. The Angels have weirdly risen to the occasion and taken on teams like the Mets and the Yankees and won those series. They swept the Mariners, but then they'll play the A's and get swept. And then they'll play the Nationals and lose 2 out of 3. And so it's really going to be an interesting weekend to see, with these teams on a collision course, who's going to come out on top, because like you said, the Braves struggle against the teams they should beat, and the Angels seem to be able to rise to the occasion. But after the week the Angels have had, I think it's anybody's series this weekend, to be honest with you.
Yeah, getting into the pitching matchups a little bit more from the Braves' point of view, you're going to get Spencer Schwellenbach on Friday, and he has been really good this year. He had a little bit of a rough start early on in the first couple of starts, but he has taken off. He's got 6 pitches that he can throw.
Woo.
Really good. His last start was in Colorado. First time pitching, at that elevation, which can always be a little tricky for pitchers, and did really, really well. So excited to see him. The only thing on him, he only had 65 professional innings coming into this season.
Wow.
And he has already, pushed way over that limit. So I don't know how much the Braves are going to ride him here down the stretch, but he has been probably the best surprise of the season for the Braves. And then you're going to get Chris Sale on Saturday, who right now is the heavy favorite to win the NL Cy Young. And it's just a great story, not having thrown a lot since 2019 with all the injuries that he's had. And now he's looking like the old Chris Sale. And like I said, right now, you look at it on our friends on FanDuel, he is the heavy favorite to win the NL Cy Young if he can just finish things off here. So like that matchup. And then obviously the veteran Charlie Morton on Sunday, who's been up and down this year. He's coming off a good one, which usually means he's due for a bad one, but hopefully that's not the case.
I have to admit, I snagged Schwellenbach on my fantasy team a couple of weeks ago, and I've been loving it. And it's nice because I drafted Austin Riley, and obviously he struggled to start this season, and he's doing better. It doesn't seem like a typical Austin Riley season, but to have a couple Braves in your fantasy lineup is never a bad thing. But I think what I would encourage perhaps Braves fans who are just, fans of seeing young up and coming stars this weekend, look to Logan O'Hoppe, look to Zach Neto, look to Jose Soriano, and even see how Joe Adell plays the outfield, because you've probably seen bloopers, you've probably seen gaffes in the outfield from Joe Adell, but he's been very solid. I think he has the most defensive run saves for any right fielder right now. So he's been very good this season. And it'll be fun to see a young team take on a competitive Braves team who has, the veteran experience and the guys who have been there before. It should be a fun matchup for these guys this weekend.
This crossover is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. And it's the most fun and exciting way to get in on all of the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. And you can get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with PrizePicks. You can make a pick of any sport, any player across basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis, golf, so much more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. You can download the app today and enter our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, all lowercase, for a first deposit match of up to $100. And this Saturday, PrizePicks is hooking you up. They're giving you a free pick. Take Israel Adesanya to get more than a half significant strike in his title fight at UFC 305. It's free money, friends. So take advantage of it, everydayers. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Fellas, let's talk about expectations for the rest of the year. Jake, I'd love to hear your perspective of where the Braves potentially could go. I know with the injuries to Lopez and some of the other starters and trying to figure out, hey, how do we continue to move forward? Then we make some trades. We get Jorge Soler, and now he's hurt, right? And so it can be very, very frustrating. So what are reasonable expectations for your Braves everydayers for this Braves team moving forward?
I mean, reasonable expectations, I think, is just making the postseason at this point with the hole that you've dug yourself in. And I think those should be more than reasonable expectations. I think even with the injuries, there's still talent here that this team should not miss the postseason, but they're very close to that being a reality. So I think reasonable should just be getting into the postseason. But I still believe in this team. I still think there is enough there for them to make a run. I mean, a lot of things has to go their way. And obviously, as always in October, you got to get hot at the right time. But I mean, you're still talking about a lineup who, you just got Michael Harris back. You have Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, who's been one of the best hitters on the planet for over a year now. You have a good catching tandem in Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud. You're still hoping to get Ozzie Albies back. I mean, this still can be a really good lineup. And, hopefully Jorge Soler's injury isn't significant. And you're talking about a lineup that's still 6-7 deep with really good hitters. And then a pitching staff that you have Chris Sale, who we talked about as the front runner to win the Cy Young. Max Fried, still a really good pitcher. His last couple of starts, he's been a little shaky coming off the injury he had at the All-Star break. You got a breakout season from Schwellenbach, and you got Ronaldo Lopez as well. And then the veteran Charlie Morton, you have a really good bullpen. So, I mean, all the pieces are still there, I think, for this team to accomplish their goals. It's just that so many things have gone. It just feels like one of those years where everything is going against you. Every little call and every game, it just feels like every ball the other team hit is just fair. Every ball you hit is just foul. It seems like one of those seasons that has made Braves fans, kind of pessimistic. But you look at it, you take a step back, and you look at this team. They still have all the pieces there, I believe, to make a run in the postseason, get to a World Series, and even win it, because it's still a really good pitching staff and still some really good hitters with some really good resumes. Things just have to click for them.
Yeah, what's the one thing that has to go right for the Braves for the rest of the way? Like this is the thing. This is the tipping point. What do you think it is?
It's got to be the offense. I mean, the pitching has been there all year long, and the offense, like, you lose Ronald Acuna Jr., you know it. When you take Mike Trout out of a lineup,
Yes.
you know what it does.
Yes.
And you take Ronald Acuna Jr. out, a guy who, 40-70 last year, and you take that out of a lineup, it's going to hurt. But the other guys in there, they've regressed too, and they haven't stepped up. You mentioned Austin Riley off to a slow start. Matt Olson's been up and down. Ozuna's the only one who's really consistently produced all year long. So if the Braves are going to reach their goal, and you can point to one thing, it's got to be the offense. I feel really good about this Braves pitching staff, starters, and the bullpen, although they did just lose A.J. Minter potentially for the year as well. So taking another hit there, but still some big pieces in that bullpen that are left, and that pitching staff's been carrying them all season. It really just does come down to, can this offense consistently put it together? And if they do that, then again, I still think they can reach their goals.
John, what I'm hearing from Jake is that the Braves have had injuries, but they've had people that have stepped up and have figured it out. Yeah. And that doesn't seem to happen in Anaheim too often, although Kevin Pillar can be an anomaly for us, right? And so what sort of expectations should Angel everydayers, Angel fans have for this team for the rest of the year? And I want to say reasonable expectations, but sometimes we're not reasonable as Angel fans. So What are your thoughts there?
It's going to continue to be a figure out what you have kind of year. I think that having somebody like Kevin Pillar around this young guy, he's made such a great impression on the young team that I think that's probably the main reason why they didn't trade him at the deadline and get something back for him, because he's been valuable in the clubhouse. He's obviously been valuable on the field. That first month that Mike Trout was out and they picked up Kevin Pillar, he turns into Mike Trout, and he was insane. And so I think that he's had a really good influence on this young team. Mike, I think to let Braves everydayers know what Angel fans can expect the rest of the way, I think it's, like I said, it's going to be an assessment of what do you have and who are the pieces that are going to contribute to your future. And a big part of that is the Angels' #1 draft pick from this year, Christian Moore. Now, he's a second baseman, and I don't know if you know, Jake, but he's been tearing it up through the minor leagues so far. What was it, like 6 home runs in his first 10 professional games or something like that? And so he's quickly moved up through the system, and he's in AA. And everybody knows the Angels have a penchant for rushing these guys to the majors. They did it with Nolan Shonowell. They brought up Zach Neto at the beginning of last season. And I think that they might do the same thing with Christian Moore. My hope is that it's not so much to say, oh, well, Moore is definitely the guy at second base in the future, but more to get a look at the end of the season, kind of like when, the rosters don't expand as much as they used to, but kind of like the end of the season, like it used to be, where you had the ability to bring up a bunch of guys and give them a look and see what they look like. I think that that's going to be a big part of what the Angels do for the remainder of the season. Mike and I have been hesitant on calling up the Angels' #1 prospect in their system, Caden Dana, who's a starting pitcher, but I could imagine the Angels giving him a look and giving him a start out there, considering how many holes this Angels rotation has had all season long. And again, it's just to give these guys a look and say, there's some good things there. We can work with that. And there's a lot of potential there. So for the rest of the way, for the Angels and their fans, it's going to be assessing what they have. And unfortunately and fortunately, looking forward to 2025.
Hey, thanks for making this crossover of Locked On Angels and Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast with our buddy Sully. He has you covered baseball all the way till the Fall Classic and after. And so you can check out his podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, if you want to give us the Super Halo Bros a follow, you can do so at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow our podcast at Locked On Angels on Twitter. And for our Angels everydayers, Jake, where can everybody find you on socials?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Also, you can check out the podcast at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure you get that underscore in there. Somebody took the original one, but LockedOn_Braves on X.
Love it, love it, love it. Appreciate that, and appreciate you joining us for this crossover. Mike, for our Locked On Everydayers on the Angels side, what do we have for Monday's show?
Yeah, we're going to recap the weekend series against the Braves. We're hoping for a series win. I know Jake is not hoping that. He hopes that the Braves get the series win.
Right.
And then on Monday on Locked On Braves,
we're going for sweep.
There you go. And then Jake on Monday has Miners Monday. So for you Locked On Everydayers for Locked On Braves, check that out on Monday. So glad that everybody was joining us today. Jake, thanks so much for being a part of this crossover with us. We enjoyed having you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Again, love listening to you guys' show. Really appreciate everything you do, and thanks for bringing me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Jake. All right, friends, have a great weekend. And until Monday's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.